Ever since humans have walked this earth, the heavens above have enticed them. Since the days of Aristotle and Galileo, theories about what lies beyond the earth has captivated humanity, even into modern times. In the 1950s, on the heels of World War II, the Soviet Union launched Sputnik 1 into space, the first artificial satellite ever. This began a space race that ended when the iconic words,
"It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind,"
were uttered by Neil Armstrong. But that was not an end to space exploration as we know it. NASA continued its work within the US, and in 1981 launched the Columbia Space Shuttle, the first shuttle in space. The Columbia went on to serve 28 more missions and log around 300 days in space. Until
the Columbia Space Shuttle disaster. Here's what happened. On January 16, 2003, the Columbia Space Shuttle took off for flight. Little did the crew know this would be their last. On the flight was Commander Rick Husband, Pilot Willie McCool, Payload Commander Michael Anderson, Mission Specialist Kaplan Chawla, David Brown, Laurel Clark, and Payload Specialist Ilan Ramon. The purpose of this mission was to conduct experiments. The crew performed 80 experiments over their 16 days in space, including ones on microgravity, anti-cancer drugs, and bone formation and maintenance, just to name a few. After launching, unbeknownst to the crew, a wing was damaged during takeoff, and this would be fatal for all aboard the shuttle. At 9 a.m. on February 1st, 2003, the craft began to ready itself for the descent back to the Kennedy Space Center. However, Mission Control started to see strange readings. There were no readings on the temperature sensors on the left wing, tire pressure readings for the left side vanished, and then when the ship was contacted by Mission Control, the crew's response was cut off mid-sentence. Soon, Columbia was near Dallas, traveling 18 times the speed of sound, and still 200,700 feet above the ground. Those at the space station could not get in contact with the crew, and it was clear something was very wrong. 12 minutes later, the image of the Columbia hurtling towards the Earth was being broadcasted on a TV station, and the world watched as the Columbia tore itself apart, ruining the shuttle and killing all 7 members.
Space Shuttle Columbia has been missing for the last 33 minutes. Mission Control lost contact with the space shuttle at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. It was scheduled to land about 9:17 a.m. Eastern Time.
Here continue
in Cape Canaveral. Let's listen to
securing
Mission Control.
information and data from today's space shuttle descent of the shuttle Columbia. Columbia's last communication was received at about 8 a.m. Central Time as Columbia flew 200,000 feet above north central Texas.
At 9 o'clock this morning, Mission Control in Houston lost contact with our space shuttle Columbia. A short time later, debris was seen falling from the skies above Texas. The Columbia is lost. There are no survivors.
This became global news, with all 7 of the crew members killed and the shuttle obliterated. Those at NASA and others in the space industry were baffled. The search for a cause began.
Assembled was the Columbia Accident Investigation Board, who began to try and find out what led to the disaster. The debris from the wreck was collected, and a team of researchers looked through it to try and find the cause. Over 20,000 volunteers helped collect the debris of the spacecraft, which took over a few weeks and covered more than 2,000 square miles. In the wreckage, researchers found not only the remains of the shuttle, but also the remains of the crew who so valiantly risked their lives for the benefit of science. One of the first things the board of researchers looked at was the videos of the launch showing one side of the shuttle and a 35mm film showing the other side. Unfortunately, neither view is perfect, but there was visible foam coming down from the shuttle and then a shower of debris coming out the other side. Early on, it seemed very clear that this was a big piece of foam that had hit in the spot on the left wing. This led the team to believe that perhaps this mistake was made during takeoff. In the debris of the shuttle, there was 1.7-pound pieces of foam, but these were written off as causing damage because these pieces of foam were so lightweight. However, just a few short weeks later, researchers decided to do what they called simple high school arithmetic, and found out if the foam hit at a relative velocity of 500 miles an hour, it would impart a force of about 3,000 pounds, roughly a ton of force. This can be described by impulse, which is force times time. Referring back to Newton's second law, force equals mass times acceleration.
stated that the acceleration of an object is directly proportional to the net force acting upon the object and inversely proportional to the mass of the object. Force times the time equals the mass times the change in velocity. In physics, the quantity force times time is known as impulse. And since the quantity mass times velocity is the momentum, the quantity mass times the change in velocity must be the change in momentum. Therefore, the equation really says is that impulse equals the change in momentum. In a collision, an object experiences a force for a specific amount of time. That results in a change in momentum. The result of the force acting for the given amount of time is that the object's mass either speeds up or slows down, or changes directions. The impulse experienced by the object equals in the change of momentum of the object, and these laws explain what happened during the takeoff of the Columbia Space Shuttle.
In the CRS report for Congress, the team describes what happened, saying, the physical cause was damage to the Columbia's left wing by a 1.7-pound piece of insulating foam that detached from the left bipod ramp that connects the external tank 1 to the orbiter and struck the orbiter's left wing 81.9 seconds after launch. The foam strike created a hole in a reinforced carbon-carbon panel on the leading edge of the wing, allowing superheated air, perhaps exceeding 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, to enter the wing during re-entry. The extreme heat caused the wing to fail structurally, creating aerodynamic forces that led to the disintegration of the orbiter. In simple terms, the damage left by the foam went unnoticed in space, but then, when the shuttle was re-entering the atmosphere, the hot air was able to enter through the strike hole and led to the damage that disintegrated the shuttle.
After the discovery that it was the foam that caused the damage to the spacecraft, a number of tests were run that justified the findings of the researchers. It was concluded that the damage was what caused the shuttle to fail. The researchers also concluded that there was nothing that could have been done to save the crew. These findings brought a sense of relief to the program, but the effects of this disaster continued to affect NASA for years to come. The Space Shuttle program was grounded, and another launch did not occur for over 2.5 years. During this time, NASA took many steps to increase safety to prevent something like this from ever happening again. The Columbia space disaster had profound effects not only on NASA, but also the globe.
That will continue to shape the future of spacecraft and travel today. This will help prevent another catastrophe like this one from happening ever again.
Space travel will not cease to exist, but will continue to grow with innovation.
Even when mistakes are made, because we as humans have not only a want to know what lies beyond us, but a need for this knowledge that will continue to shape our lives and our futures.